Hello, dear friends. I managed to restore my blog and published all the backlogged entries at once, but 5 articles were deleted. Opinion piece. ShockWave. Subtle pushes. Resulting chaos. March Madness. 7 dominoes. Frequency clash. Demolition process. Economic volatility. Fragile equilibrium. Uncertainty principle. Revelation of darkness. The power of consciousness. The science of manifestation. Matrix failures under pressure. Let's start. When a higher frequency interferes with a lower one, a brutal shock occurs, generating chaos. When a high-frequency wave overlaps with a low-frequency wave, their amplitudes add up, producing regions of greater constructive intensity or destructive cancellation. This is observed in sound, light, and electromagnetic waves without implying random disorder. Something similar is happening with the clash between the Earth's new and old frequencies. There is a talk of a vibrational transition between the traditional Schumann resonance and the recent increase in generating chaos. It is about revealing the darkness so that it can be dissolved, and this generates a process of demolition and a fragile equilibrium. The jump from 7.83 Earth to 36 or 120 Earth cause fatigue, anxiety, dizziness, or a temporary acceleration, which is perceived as a collective awakening. This synchronizes with brain waves, forcing adaptation. Symptoms include insomnia, depression, heightened intuition, or a sense of cosmic connection attributed to a conflict between old and new frequencies. Mr. Poole believes that 7 dominoes must fall before the emergency transition system is activated. Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, Ukraine, North Korea, and perhaps Europe. The 7th piece isn't a country, but the Fed. When the 7th piece falls, the system will activate on all screens. The countdown began on February 23rd and will end when the 7th circle goes dark. Glimpses. According to Ariel, the matrix glitches under pressure. In his view, there is a triad of powers. The good guys are the white hats, who play 4D chess, while the bad guys are the cabal that parasitizes the planet and the hidden networks of puppeteers who pull the strings from logists and bankers. All of them, good and bad, play with timelines, which are not fixed tracks, but quantum networks, woven and rewoven by the collective consciousness. They suppress this knowledge because if humanity understood it, we would unravel their web of control in weeks, not centuries. This is confirmed by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which is the foundation of quantum physics. According to this principle, timelines branch out from reality to infinity like probability waves that collapse according to observation. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle states that it is impossible to simultaneously know physical quantity, such as the position and momentum of a particle. Position and momentum cannot be measured at the same time because these two quantities are complementary, so the most precise description of one implies greater uncertainty in the other. This is not a problem of faulty instruments, but a consequence of the nature of particles. The power of consciousness. Your mind is not a passive spectator. It is a director, and on a massive scale. The production studio of humanity. This is not a quantum oddity at the micro scale, but at the macro scale, when consciousness is added. The Kabbalah knows this from ancient texts, Egyptian papyri of Akashic fields, Vedic sutras or the Maya illusion, and Gnostic codices or Archontic timeline logs. All of them detail how focused intention distorts the ether. They apply this knowledge not for science, but to anchor preferred timelines where they win. The hidden networks ritualize blood moons to sow fear and solstices to cement negative loops. They impose timelines that benefit them based on how they are perceived, according to the narrative they cultivate to maintain a web of control where you always see yourself as a victim, because what you see allows them to see themselves as the empowered authority of your reality. On the opposing side, the White Hats counterattack with their own subtle nudges, filtered information, and staged events to guide us toward disclosure, but they are merely shifting the playing field to install their version of soft control for the planet. Decades ago, demonstrations were delayed for years because the collective consciousness was dense, obstructed by fluoride, electromagnetic fields, and tools designed to provoke mental confusion, directing attention toward consumerism or the division. But the veil is crumbling after 2020. Solar flares increase the human resonance, and viral awakenings via platforms like X turn isolated ideas into global echoes. That's why I track jumps in the timeline. The Nosphere is Teilhard-de-Chardin's layer of collective thought suppressed by the Vatican since the 50s. They cry fake news at predictions like those of such figures, labeling them as delusions. But their own think tanks make Hollywood movies of predictive programming that show events to normalize them, like 9/11. If collective consciousness doesn't work, why do they invest billions of narrative control through algorithms? It's not just about having happy thoughts. It's quantum resonance entanglement at the scale of consciousness, where aligned intentions create feedback loops that collapse probabilities faster than light. The ancients mastered this science. The Mayan calendars didn't record linear time, but rather cycles of dream incantations, where mass rituals marked the beginning of a new era. Every thought emits a scalar wave that intertwines with similar frequencies. Middle East. At least 2 oil tankers hit in attacks near the coast of Iraq. The US says it has attacked 5,500 targets in Iran and wants to protect the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz will not be open until Iran says so, according to Mike Adams. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the Emirates, and Kuwait intercept attacks launched by Iran. The UN Security Council demands Iran hold its attacks against Arab countries. The UAE warns of prison sentences for spreading unofficial information. I'm talking about Emirates. Israel simultaneously bombs Iran and Beirut. The sleep pill used by Israeli pilots is called modafinil. The US may be responsible for the attack on a school in Iran due to the use of outdated data, according to Reuters. Economy. Warning signs in the economy and markets. 48 hours of market volatility. Oil prices fall by more than 15%. Iran is exporting more oil than before the attack. Iraq is trying to save its oil exports. A seizure of Iran's Karg Island would paralyze 90% of its oil exports. The US eases oil sanctions as prices rise, allowing India to buy Russian crude. The International Energy Agency announces the largest release of oil reserves to lower crude prices. More than 30 countries agreed to release 400 million barrels of oil from their strategic reserves onto the market. Saudi Aramco warns of catastrophic consequences if the war with Iran continues. Iran warns that the price of oil could rise to $100 a barrel due to its pressure in the Strait of Hormuz. Banking giants ask their employees to evacuate offices in Dubai due to the conflict. Private credit chaos shakes major funds. The Iran war does not boost gold prices. Gold has fallen by 2%. Europe. Brussels launches incentives to boost nuclear energy. Spain opposes projects to strengthen Europe's nuclear potential. Romania will allow the deployment of US forces for the war. The European Parliament calls for increased defense spending not to come at the expense of social policies. Macron opposes lifting oil sanctions against Russia, taking a stand against the US. Spain. Spain dismisses its ambassador to Israel. Trump accuses Spain of not cooperating in the war against Iran. Spain will not participate in a mission in the Strait of Hormuz and will not send mine sweepers. The IBEX falls below 17,400 points, pressured by the price of oil. Gasoline prices hit their highest point of the year due to the war tensions. The Treasury profited from the surge in gasoline and diesel prices in March. Brussels takes the Treasury's refusal to exempt the self-employed from VAT to court. The war disrupts tourism and could redirect travelers to Spain again. King Felipe VI meets with Maria Corina Machado. Sánchez announces the launch of the Hadio tool to measure the reach of hate speech on social media. Housing prices in Spain are rising twice as fast as in Europe. Home sales reached an 18-year high, but slowed down in the last quarter. Unicaja, the first Spanish bank to partner with NVIDIA to boost AI. Spain consolidates its position at the world's 10th largest arms exporter, accounting for 3% of the total. Spanish researchers discover an intestinal bacterium that enhances muscle strength. Americas. A strategic shift. The US moves closer to an economic agreement with Cuba. Mexico's Chamber of Deputies rejects President Sheinbaum's electoral reform. Mexico says there is no danger to the 2026 World Cup, but the US warns that the risk persists. Ecuador agrees with the US on the permanent presence of FBI agents in the country. The Chilean Senate elects its new president, the fifth woman in history. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.